Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and this is a space where women who value achievement, success, accomplishment, and wealth, but also crave happiness, love, joy, and deep fulfillment come to remember that we get to have both. Not by doing more, but by being more of who we truly are. In this show, we explore identity, energy, alignment, and embodiment because you didn't come here to follow someone else's rules. You came to right your own. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and I am here today to answer a very important question. And that question is, when is enough enough? When is it enough? And I have to tell you, this is a question that was inspired by the Closers Cruise. If you don't know, January 10th through the 17th, I flew to Miami and got on a cruise ship with about 100 people I didn't know, and went and spoke and delivered a talk on the energetics of winning. And I just had the coolest time. It was so fun to get to speak and be part of a conference, but then also get to hang out with the people you were speaking to. It was so cool. Major kudos to the cruise directors, the folks Kim Dean and Samantha Smith from Simply Texas, the gals from Property Geeks in Minnesota, Farm Pancock, and Hannah and Sarah. They're just incredible. And so kudos to those women, but kudos to those women for having a different conversation, right? Because we've all been to business conferences. Whether you're a realtor or not, this is still very relevant to you. So please stick around. It doesn't really, where it's just, here's all the skills and here's all the strategies and here's all the ideas. And there were plenty of skills, strategies, and ideas, but what they layered in was a lot of mindset, was a lot of energetics. They brought in somebody to talk about Enneagram. They talked about somebody who helps people who are just starting their business. And then I really delivered, my talk to the people who are already winning and aren't happy. And literally a woman in the back of the room raises her hand and she says, I resonated so much with the part of your story where you said, no matter what you did, it was never enough. She's like, that's where I'm at. I'm living a life I never could have possibly imagined. And it still feels like it's not enough. When is enough enough? And of course, y'all know me, that just started festering and thinking. And so I put together some notes and thoughts and ideas as to how I would coach a client through that, how I would answer the question. Okay. Answer that specific question. And the way that this shows up, I'll tell you other ways. Maybe you haven't said it that way. It's I'm winning, but I'm anxious all the time, right? So people who are I'm making a lot of money, but I'm anxious. I talked to another realtor team who, same thing, we're winning, but I'm anxious all the time. I'm winning, but there's this constant urge of more. I'm winning, but it still feels like it's not enough. I'm winning, but it still feels like I could be doing more. I still have capacity. I spoke to another woman who was I have capacity for more. But ultimately the question was, how do I get off the ride? How do I stop feeling like there's, I'm on a hamster wheel and if I stop running, everything stops. And guys, I know this feeling to my core, right? This is literally my story. My first iteration of my business, I grew to $1.2 million in 2 years and everything was falling apart. And so I had the thing that I thought I was supposed to have, right? Which was money and success based on the world's definition. If you haven't listened to last week's podcast, you should. But it was about this feeling of it was never enough. The reason why the more money I made, the more pressure I felt is because I was chasing enough. But when you actually drill down into this, what is enough, right? What does enough actually mean? And you guys know this about me. I'm the first one to go to Google and say, give me the definition of this word, right? So what is the definition of the word enough? And the definition is as much or as many as required. As much or as many as required. And for 99% of the people listening to this podcast, you actually have more than enough. You have as much or as many is required in your day-to-day life. But here's the second part of this that's real trippy is there are no actual requirements. In life, there are no actual requirements. You die and you pay taxes. Those are really the only requirements. And I know that you think that that's not true because you're well, Ryan, I have to pay my mortgage, and I have to pay my bills, and I have to feed my kids. Yes, do you have to though? There are plenty of people who don't pay mortgages. There's plenty of people who don't feed their kids. Not that those are good choices or choices you want to make, but they are not requirements based on the world's requirements. They are preferences. And when you realize that, I prefer to pay my mortgage on time. Right? I prefer to feed my children. I know that sounds weird, but it is quite literally a choice. And you have to think, it's start looking at this from a different paradigm that everything we do in life has a choice, even the things that we feel like we don't have a choice. You have a choice, right? You have a choice to tell yourself this is not enough, or you have a choice to tell a different story. And so the hard part of this is that you already have enough. And so you have to make it feel like enough. That's ultimately, how do we make what we have feel like enough, right? So when is it enough? You make what you have feel like enough. And the way that I have done this, the way that's worked for me is that I stopped defining enough through things. I stopped defining enough through things. Money, Not enough, right? I mean, I literally had $1 million year and it wasn't enough. So I couldn't use money as a benchmark, right? Promotions weren't enough. When I left corporate America in 2019, I had a director level corporate job, right? That wasn't enough. Again, I was a director in a rapid growing startup. The title wasn't enough. So clearly the things that I was chasing were not the answer. And what I learned was that if enough is external, it will never feel like enough. If enough is external, meaning something outside of me is dictating my enoughness, then it will never be enough because that's not the way we're wired. The human spirit is actually built for expansion. Contrast is inevitable. You will always want more. It's what you were put on this planet to do. Your soul is for expansion. Bob Proctor says that the spirit is for expansion. The way Abraham describes this is that every time we get a manifestation, we then get a new set of contrasting experiences. So I think sometimes we think that enough is a place with no contrast. Enough is a place with no desire. Enough is not the absence of desire. You're wired for desire. You will always want more. So we have to reconfigure, reprogram, recode ourselves and retrain our brain to look for the enoughness feeling that we're looking for. And that's the thing. Enough is a feeling, not a number. When you start defining your life by the way that it feels instead of the things that you achieve, this will shift for you. Okay, this is literally the foundation of my Create 2026 work. We're wrapping those up, which is so much fun, but this is literally the foundation of my entire body of work. You are chasing a feeling, whether you want to admit it or not. That is what you want. The thing that you want in your life, you want it because of the way that you think it is going to make you feel. And so when you are looking for enoughness through things, it's never going to feel, it's never going to match. Your enoughness is in a feeling. Define the feeling of your life. Define how winning feels to you. What is your life when you have enough? And what I found for a lot of people is they haven't even sat down to ask themselves this question. What is enough? Like that was one conversation on the cruise with the woman, like, have you defined enough? And she's like, well, yeah, but the thing is, like I talked about in last week's podcast, when we're measuring things by the form of money or different things like that, promotions, titles, again, the goalpost often moves. So we have to define the feeling of our life, and that has to be the benchmark. So I shared with this in my Create 2026 work, one of the big things that I did with my clients, I had them create 3 energies for the year. Instead of words of the year, energies of the year. So for me, my 3 were intentional, obsessed, and joy, right? And intentional means deliberated on purpose, because again, I went to Google and I looked up the words, right? Obsessed means filling your brain. And I know the world often thinks of obsessed as negative. I don't, right? It's a filling. And so for me, obsessed with filling my brain with what lights me up. So really, again, intentionally focusing on what I want, like being obsessed with it, thinking about it all the time in a way that feels amazing. And joy means doing things that feel good. So for me, a life that is enough, a life that is successful is one that is intentional, obsessed, and full of joy, right? So it is deliberate. It is on purpose. It lights me up. It sets me on fire and it feels good. And if I'm doing those things, I am winning regardless of the outside circumstances. Okay. So I created somewhat of a different scorecard, if you will, right? We're all keeping score in some capacity. Derek and I talked about this in the pod we did together. If you haven't listened to that one, it's really, really good. But every day, what I'm doing is I'm asking myself, was I intentional today? Was I obsessed today? Was I joyful today? If the answer is yes, then I did enough today. I am enough today. Today was fucking enough. Today was enough. I don't need permission. I don't need a milestone. I don't need something outside of me to happen. I get to decide that because I focused on what I wanted to focus on. And here's the thing, even if I realize, I wasn't as intentional as I wanted to be, but here's what I'm going to do differently tomorrow. So this is not a scorecard of which we used to beat ourselves up, which we're really good at as high achievers, right? This is me focusing on, deciding that I am enough for my life, deciding that my life is enough for me, deciding I get to be, do, and have whatever the fuck that I want, right? I think too, this is not in my notes. This is a very intuitive thought. I think the reason why we are chasing enough is because, not yet. Why external scorecards don't work. Why do the external scorecards not work? 1, things like money, activities, contracts, promotions, awards, productions, right? If that's the only scorecard, it will never be enough because those are things outside of you. You don't actually, those things have to happen. If you need something outside of you to change, I say this in almost every podcast, right? If you need something outside of you to change for you to be happy, you are using external forces and you're always going to be stuck, right? We have to move the scorecard, right? The things we're keeping track of from outside to inside, move it to a feeling and become an energetic match to the life that already feels full. Right? It already feels full. Because the truth is, here's the thought. It's coming back. The enoughness, the way that you're thinking about it, am I enough, right? You want your life to make you feel like you're enough. You have to decide, right? You have to decide, I'm enough. I'm enough. I could never make another dollar ever fucking again, and I will be enough. I could never help another client ever again, and I will be enough. I could never get another promotion ever again, and I would be enough. And if that triggers you when I say those things, that is your work. You are looking for those outside things for you to tell yourself, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm enough. Almost everything we want in life is because we want to be loved. We fucking are loved, for crying out loud, right? And so when we're looking for the money to make us feel loved, we're in a conditional situation. When we're looking for the clients to make us feel loved, I'm in a conditional situation. The conditions dictate me. That is not intentional reality creation. That's what I call the mind game. The energy game says I decide. I decide that I am enough, and I let the outside world mirror me. Life is happening through you, not to you. We talk about this often, okay? So what do we do? What do we do, right? So we started with your scorecard, okay? Your scorecard has to change. That's the first thing you want to do. If you want to answer the question, when is enough, change your scorecard, right? Decide your energy, bring it inside, decide, right? Internal scorecard. The second thing, comparison. Comparison is making it worse. Comparison is not harmless because one, you're comparing yourself to people you don't actually know. And I know this to be true because I've gotten in rooms with those people who on the internet will tell you that they are winning, and behind closed doors, they are not, right? You don't know their life. You don't know their circumstances. You have no idea what's going on. When I was on the cruise, somebody was telling us a story about this realtor who is always marketing her date nights and things like that with her husband, always on social media, and come to find out that was all staged. I've seen people who, another one of my clients who was telling me about this woman that she was looking up to in her industry and looking up to in her market, and come to find out she was outproducing this woman. This woman's marketing was just prettier than hers, right? Comparison, quite frankly, is fucking stupid. The only person responsible for your results is you. The only person responsible for your results is you. So looking at somebody else outside of you as a benchmark is just going to make you feel like shit, quite frankly. Right? And I want you to use comparison differently because it's hard to not compare yourself, especially because most of you work in industries where there are benchmarks, right? So if you're a realtor, there's likely, awards available to you. If you're an entrepreneur, there are rooms you get into at $50,000 months, $100,000 months, right? There's some rooms you can't get into until you're making XYZ amount of money, right? There are certain women's professional organizations that if you don't have a certain title, you can't get into, right? There are all these benchmarks and these milestones that we're taught that we need to get, and then we'll get to the next level. And so we're comparing ourselves to people who we think are further along than us, right? They're ahead of us in some capacity. At least that's the story we're telling ourselves. But the truth of the matter is we have no fucking idea. We have no idea. It's the story we tell ourselves. So why don't we tell ourselves a different story? This is how I started using comparison, and it changed so much for me. I use it for inspiration, not measurement. So when I see somebody who I believe is doing well based on the way they show up, based on my metrics, I ask, what do I have in common with that person? Not what does that person have that I don't, right? That triggers our not enoughness, right? What do they have that I don't? I think, what do we have in common? Like, what do this person, oh, she's also a mom. Oh, she's also, used to be in corporate America. Oh, she also used to have this experience and that experience. Like, we both use the F word in our content, right? Like, we both really like to share our lives and don't have this common aesthetic, right? If they can do it and we share traits, I'm closer than I think, right? So I stopped asking, what do they have that I don't? And it's like, what do I have that works? How can I take from that what I want? What do we have in common? And so that way, when I'm scrolling through social media, which I'm making a giant effort to do less of in 2026, I'm gonna let you know how this goes. I put all the limits on my phone. I put like times that could work and times that it couldn't. I'm a little uncomfortable, but it's going well. But like that's part of this big thing is this comparison to others, this judgment of others that constantly makes us feel like we're not enough. Or then on the flip side, when we are the leader, which many of you are, then it's like, well, I can't let them down. They're watching me. They expect this from me, right? So one way or the other, we're making it not enough. We have to start looking at it differently. Okay. The missing piece, I think, for so many people is that you have, and this is kind of the third thing. So action items, right? Action item number 1, change the scorecard. Action item number 2, change the way you're comparing yourself to other people. You can say that you're not. I know that you are. And the third one is you have to fucking create space. Most high achievers have zero margin. Zero margin in their calendars, certainly zero emotional margin, zero nervous system margin. That was me. Zero margin, right? Vacations don't count if you work the whole time. It's not a vacation if you work the whole time. Sorry, not sorry. A maxed out life will always feel like not enough because there is no space. I always use like in terms of, on a scale of 1 to 10, right? Say you have 10 units of energy to use today. If you have all 10 of those accounted for before you even get out of bed in the morning, there's no space for anything to go wrong. There's no space for new ideas. There's no space for magic or intuition or life to surprise you or spontaneity or coincidence or anything like that because all of your energy units are already spent. And most of you, those energy units are being spent in things that don't recharge you, which is a whole nother thing, right? A maxed out life where every single moment feels maxed will always feel like not enough, right? Because there's no ease, there's no flow, there's no intuition. You're stuck in your mind. You're stuck in logic, you're stuck in problem solving, and most of your thinking is time spent trying to fix things. So you're not imagining and creating with your thoughts. You're trying to fix the problems that you have and find the margin to fix the shit that you don't have time to do, right? Space is so important. And I will be honest with you that it was extremely uncomfortable, right? I believed in my heart of hearts when up until, gosh, quite literally the last 5 or 6 years, that action was the primary tool of creation. I was wrong. Action is not the primary tool of creation. Energy is. So when all of our margin is used up in a tool of creation that is not the primary tool, there is no margin. There is no space, right? I was wrong. I have cleared 80% of what I used to put on my calendar. I work probably 20 to 25% of the hours that I used to work, and I make probably about 15 to 20% more. And that number is changing dramatically in 2026. Okay. The results didn't change because most of us have the fear, like I said at the beginning of this, if I slow down, I'll lose everything. If I'm the one manning the hamster wheel and making the wheel go, if I stop, the wheel stops going and the results stop. That fear is not true. That fear is rooted in the mind game. It's rooted in the idea that the action is the tool of creation. Your energy is the tool of creation. So the reason why it constantly feels like no matter how much you achieve outside of you and how much you do, it is not enough is because those are not the creation tools. Your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions, your words, those are actually the primary creation tools. Action is the final step. But most of us give 80% of our energy to the action, and fuck, if you have no margin, you're giving 0 to the actual creation process. So the real truth here is that enough doesn't exist. Requirements don't exist. You passed require fucking decades ago. And that's it. And so here's something I learned. And I honestly think, guys, I had to go bankrupt. I've said this before on the show because I learned that I needed far less than I thought, that the requirements, the enoughness were so small compared to what I think I needed in my life. Like you learn real quick, right? But everybody was fed, everybody was loved, everybody was warm, and everybody had fun. Fed, loved, warm or cold, temperature appropriate, and loved. That's actually all that is required. Everything else is gravy, right? But we have made those everything else the requirements. And so there's always a gap. We desire a lot. I desire a lot. I desire a giant fucking life. But I need very little. And when I realized that, enough went away. Enough became irrelevant. What's the fucking enough? The sky's the motherfucking limit. There is no such thing as enough. I'm never going to reach it. So I'm going to stop chasing it. Just like I stopped chasing money, I stopped chasing enough. You have always had enough, right? You have always had enough. You continue to tell yourself that you are not enough and blame it on things outside of ourselves. Enough was never missing, guys. It's not missing. It's not up for discussion. And it's not external. That's why it feels this way. Your feeling of not enough is self-created. And anything that is self-created means it can be changed, right? It can be changed. It can be changed by changing our scorecard, right? Deciding, redefining what enough, what success is for you, right? I've been talking about this for the last couple of months very intentionally, guys, right? You then have to stop comparing yourself to other people. Let go of judgment. Judgment of yourself, judgment of others. It will change your life. It will make you a significantly happier person. And you have to create space. There is no space in your life for magic, for intuition, for good ideas, for serendipity. You're always going to have to manually do it. If you don't make space for creativity, you're always going to have to use action as your creation tool. You have to make space for the energy, right? Abraham always says that, everything you want will come to you in the path of least resistance. Well, there are no cracks. There's nowhere for it to get in. There's nowhere for that feeling to get to you because you're over here doing and stressing out and all of the different things. So the invitation you have with this particular podcast is I want you, if this resonates, I want you to listen to it a couple of times and actually sit down and do these exercises. Because I also know you, Miss High Achiever, you like to consume, right? You're probably listening to this while you're walking, or maybe you're driving to a listing appointment, or maybe you're driving to, whatever you're doing, putzing around your house while you're waiting for your next Zoom meeting. Maybe you are, commuting to and from your office, whatever that looks like for you. And you're listening to this and you're like, oh, that felt really good. And then quite frankly, you're going to do nothing with it. And I can say this because this was me. And I say this because the women who I wind up coaching, that is the case. They've read all of the books. They've listened to all of the podcasts and their lives haven't changed. Their lives haven't changed. because they're not actually doing anything with the things that you are listening to. So if you really want to answer that question, when is enough enough? Do the fucking work that I talk about inside of this podcast. Do the things. And what's so wild is high achievers with anybody else, we talk shit about people who don't do the things. I don't anymore, but I used to, right? Like people who were lazy, people who weren't willing to put in the work, people who weren't willing to put themselves out there. Like I used to judge those people pretty significantly, but I was doing the same thing to myself for many years, just the inside, right? I was doing all the outside work. I wasn't doing the inner work. Right? And that's the thing. If you want a different experience of life, you have to bring a different energy. And the only way you get to bring a different energy is if you shift the focus from external to internal. Is it comfortable? No. Is it easy? Yes. It's the easiest hard work you'll ever do because the rest of the world is telling you something entirely different. What I learned when I did this work is I had to detach myself from what everybody else said. And I won't tell you that that was easy. I will not tell you it was easy to stop looking at people in my industry and looking at people around me and looking at, the stories and the programs and the way I grew up and what I was seeing on social media and think, am I fucking crazy? Am I fucking crazy for believing this? Like, am I insane? And the answer is probably, but the answer is it doesn't really matter. Because as I said before on the show, and I'll say it again, like, I don't want what the world wants. I don't want my business to feel like most people's businesses feel. I don't want my life to look like most people's life. I don't want to live a life that is full to the gills and has zero margin. I don't want to live a life that is completely contingent upon my action creating 100% of the results. So why am I going to look at people whose results are not at all what I want and let that make me feel crazy? To me, the crazy thing is to continue to hear a message like the one I'm sharing with you over and over and over again and keep doing it the same way. The definition of insanity. Do the same thing over and over and again, expecting different results. Again, we think of action. I want you to think of thinking, identity, choices that you're making, right? Not just doing. Are you thinking the same thoughts every day? Are you feeling the same feelings every day? Are you putting the same pressure on yourself every day? Are you continuing to put yourself last on your to-do list every day? Then why the fuck do you think your world is going to change? Because it's not. I love you. I'm glad that you're here. I don't know where that tough love came from at the end, but it came through. Sorry for a few of the intuitive pauses. It's really interesting. As I do this work, the more I tap into my intuition, I get thoughts, but they're not always all the way clear. Like I'll start to feel them, but then they don't come all the way through. And then when I try to put pressure on them, it's worse. So I've learned to let them go, but you guys literally heard that in real time today. So I love you. I appreciate you. And I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Uncensored Self podcast. If this conversation cracked something open for you, trust that. That's the work. And share this episode with a woman in your life who's ready to stop performing and start creating. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, leave a review. It helps this message reach the women who need it most. Remember, you're the creator. The rules are yours. And your uncensored self, she already knows what to do. Keep leading, keep listening, keep becoming.